We are live now. Here we go.
Coming to you live is the AutoHub show, changing automotive one show at a time with Ian and Jeff. And here we go.
Who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Hi, I'm Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of a company called Retail Resilient, social selling for the car industry. And we help auto dealers, auto agencies, and vendors in the auto industry sell more cars, service more cars, and make more money using our social selling strategy. That includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anything else you can think of. So if you're looking to invest thousands and make millions, we're definitely the social selling company for you. Like I said, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
If you run a service drive, you know these days first impressions matter. But when your advisors are tied up with inbound phone calls, they tend to neglect their other, more important duties. And did you know 75% of all service calls are frequently asked questions and routine requests? Still, the average dealer misses up to 30% of inbound calls, adding up to a ton of missed service opportunity and increased customer churn. 68% of callers actually go elsewhere if they can't get through, which means you could be losing $60,000 to $70,000 every month in service revenue simply from missing calls. So who will pick up? Introducing Brooke.
Hi there.
Your best service scheduling assistant. Brooke is the first intelligent digital voice assistant to answer, handle, and appoint all of your inbound service calls. And talking to Brooke is like talking to a friend with human-level understanding and a friendly conversational voice. Her conversational intelligence is built on millions of actual service industry conversations. Book with Brooke today. Visit Brooke.ai or call 866-942-1236. Finally, the perfect match.
Our goals are always to improve. Every month we want to improve better on what we did the month before, maybe the year before. It's about how fast we can get the cars done with quality work to get it to the front line, because that's where we make our money. And the bottom line is the longer it takes, the more money you spend. We want to get it down as low as possible. Right now, like I said, we're in a great stage. We're at 4.5 days. In recon, we want to know how quickly we can get the cars out of the recon process and to the front line. The average days in recon and then the time to line are the most important things to be looked at. I'm Mike Burrell, I'm Service Director at JM Lexus.
Larry Feldman is probably the most amazing trainer that I've ever experienced in this business. I've been in the car business now for 35 years, and I've seen quite a few trainers. A lot of them are pretty good. I mean, really, I get something out of all of them that I've seen, really. But Larry is in another class. I really mean that. His training is literally riveting. A little while back, I sat in on his first training that I ever sat in on. It was for new hires. I still remember, I'll never forget it. About 25 people in the room who've never sold cars before. And after 2 hours, I raised my hand. Larry stopped what he's doing and said, yes. And I said, maybe we should take a break. And literally, I'll never forget it. All 25 people turned around, looked at me, and went, well, okay. And he kept going for another 2 hours. Since then, I've seen a few other trainings. I've hired people out of his classes. All I can say is, you got to give him a try.
All right, good morning. So a few book recommendations. Since it's a prediction show, these books are on making predictions. So 2052 by Jordan, I guess. The Future is Faster, Super Forecasting. So go ahead with the disclaimer, Jeff.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And of course, this is the part of the show where we do the disclaimer, which says the views and opinions of those people on the show are just that of them, not necessarily that of the AutoHub show or Ian and Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Ian.
It's the prediction show, and just in case you weren't aware, Larry Feldman is going to be in Vancouver next week. So feel free to check it out on our website and register. He'll be here live and in person. So let's get into it, Mr. Jeff.
Well, thanks again, everybody. We have a whole list of new guests today, which we're really, really excited about for the prediction show. And of course, one way to predict the future is to have some new people to share their opinion. And starting in the order that appears on my screen, first of all, I'm going to ask you to answer this question after you introduce yourself. And that is, complete this statement. In 2023, I protect the retail auto industry will. First of all, we have Kamal Oberoi. Hopefully I got that right. Kamal from the mothership, Google. And Kamal, tell us about yourself and respond to the question, please.
For sure, Jeff. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Kamal Oberoi. I actually work at Google in the automotive sector, and I lead the insights for all of Canada. I've been doing this for almost 3 years, but I've been a proponent of the voice of the consumer for almost 18 years now. So I'm really excited to be here. So my first time to do this with you guys. I've heard so much about you guys. But anyways, I'll jump straight to it. In 2023, I predict the retail auto industry will need to refocus on how they are driving efficiencies. And the last couple of years, if anything, they've given us the best, most profitable years for our dealerships. But what's going to happen is, as demand slows down and supply starts improving, there's just going to be this equilibrium that's going to start setting in, and competition is going to heat up. So you need to revisit as dealerships, how are you incentivizing not just your consumers, but your sales folks as well. And that will mean a lot more focus on the efficiency that you're driving home today. Maybe even revisit how you are stocking up your inventories going forward. So I think for me, the prediction is the retail industry will refocus on how they're driving efficiency at the dealerships. So that's me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks again for being here. Next, we have, again, in no particular order, but who's on my screen, it's Cliff Banks of all sorts of stuff. Cliff, thanks for joining us for the first time. And please introduce yourself and then complete your prediction for 2023 in the automotive industry.
Thanks, guys. Great being here. I published the Banks report and have a conference I put on annually, Automate, which focuses on investment and M&A activity in the automotive space, both from a tech perspective and dealership perspective. Please complete the statement. Let's see. In 2023, I predict the retail auto industry will be not much different than what it is today.
Interesting.
Okay.
And let me just put a caveat there. Every presentation I've given the last 2 years, I lead off with a slide that is of a shattered crystal ball. You can take my prediction and toss it in the trash because I think we are in a period of great uncertainty about the industry. I think it's going to continue to evolve stuff.
For sure. For sure. You know what? I love that prediction. That's the shattered crystal ball. That's terrific. And last but certainly not least is Josselyn Boudett. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Joining us from Stella, which we were very, very lucky to have one of our last interviews at Used Car Week in San Diego with two of your fine people from Stella. And thank you for joining us. Please introduce yourself and your prediction.
Thank you. This is Josselyn. I'm Josselyn Boudett. Stella Automotive is a specialist in answering telephones. We use AI technology to help dealers service their consumer customers. And Stella is a fully automated AI that can have long dialogues, booking appointments. And so that is our topic of interest, at least as we conclude 2022. And what I predict is that the service lane is going to be completely overwhelmed. We are seeing early signs of it. I haven't heard it spoken about at too many conferences, but it's certainly something that we've been running into as Stella applies for and gets the job of appointment booking. What we notice is there are dealers with appointments booking 6, 7, 8 weeks out. It's alarming that the service lane is already overwhelmed in some cities, some group and areas. I think that what we're going to see by the end of 2023 is an emergence of white glove service, a move to AI for improved workflow processes, which I'd love to elaborate on. And then I think this kind of diagnostic to a diagnostic and/or a recall to the customer involving smooth pickup, smooth diagnostic, smooth estimate of time, smooth pricing, and a good solution for that time period where the car's in service is going to be a big move this year.
That's something that's a very interesting point you made, because yesterday, like all of us, I was looking on LinkedIn, and a gentleman who's been a guest many times, who's what I call an evangelist, James Carter, commented on Tesla, and he's a huge fan of Tesla, that he made a post about Freightliners delivering electric trucks now. And they said Tesla's biggest challenge is how they treat the customer after sale. So it's a great point. Thank you for that comment. Ian.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, because there was also a news story on the weekend that General Motors dealers are doing a lot of Tesla service because Tesla doesn't have locations to service these vehicles in a lot of cases. So General Motors dealers have been stepping in to do service on Tesla models. So that was very interesting. What challenge or challenges from 2022 will diminish in 2023? Let's start with Kamal, since he probably has some data access, I would guess.
For sure, thank you. I'm going to take an interesting answer to this one. I've been thinking about this. Is I think the one thing that is really going to diminish for next year is the demand. And I think that's a blessing in disguise for us for next year, especially given the supply chain is literally kind of stepping up, coming back up. And I think that is going to be the biggest thing that's going to start diminishing. And that will mean a lot more focus on the consumers going forward. Competition is going to start heating up. That means, and I think that's where I believe the biggest thing that will start dropping off in 2023 for Canada, based on some of the fact that it's mostly policy-driven slowdown that we are now seeing in the economy. Demand would start slowing down. It won't really go down to the point where we have bad sales, I believe, hopefully not. But I think that's my biggest thing for 2023. We'll start seeing a lot more slowdown in demand than what we've been lucky with this year, frankly, with all its ups and downs.
Let's get the Stella point of view. What do you think on 2022, 2023? What do you think, Josselyn?
Well, I identify as an AI completely, so you're always going to get an AI forward opinion from me. But I would tell you that manual processes are going to be dead any minute. And there's going to be a pretty large distinction between a company that only knows how to deliver manually and a company that actually can use recommendation engines and context-aware type processes. I think that there is going to be a death of companies that are slow to move to the technology, and their lives will be shortened as that accelerates.
Interesting. What do you think, Cliff? I mean, obviously, we're hearing a lot from the tech side. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think it all depends on whether inventory, whether some of these supply issues across the board get ironed out or start to get ironed out. Every time we hear that they are, then the next month or two we find out that they're not. And I think it's again, I'll just go back to where I think the play is going to be. It's the overall industry is still going to be volatile. It's going to be on a brand basis. So trying to make these, I think, grand predictions in terms of the overall industry coming from a monolithic perspective, I think it's hard because every brand is going to be different. I think different dealers approaching the market differently. So it's again, we just don't know on the geopolitical side how things play out and are going to play out. I think the deal with China, the relations with China are going to have great impact throughout the rest of the decade. But again, how does that go? I mean, tomorrow we wake up and two planes could run into each other, collided, or two ships in the China Sea. They could lead to all sorts of things. So I'm just saying that we really have to, dealers need to keep their heads down and keep focused on doing the job at hand, which is selling and servicing cars and finding new tools and solutions to help them do that. And I think we're going to see that. But I will say this: to me, the big question mark from a high level view will be that here in the States will be the dealer manufacturer issues, and Ford is going to be dominating the conversation there in 2023. So how that plays out, I think, will determine a great deal about the future over the rest of the decade.
Yeah, I saw some interesting news that Ford sales were down, but EV sales were up, which is bode well for them, being that their actual sales are up, despite the fact that their ICE vehicle sales are down. So it was very interesting.
Yeah, I think that just is somewhat of a, there are some supply dynamics late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter. So I'm not sure that that's a pattern as much. I think that, again, it's seeing this data. I mean, it's hard to interpret it right now. Whereas 3 years ago, we could look at the data and say, oh yeah, this. It's much harder.
Jeff?
Actually, it's very funny. You mentioned, Cliff, about two ships or two planes and two ships colliding. Just saw something, seeing as how we just left San Diego, two U.S. warships nearly ran into each other there. So it can be just quickly with anything.
Yes.
So, Ian and I are hearing that as a response to the pandemic, to inventory behaviors, et cetera, the good times, 2023 could bring some serious reckoning for dealers. And so your opinion, Cliff, I'm looking right at you. What do you think? Is 2023 going to be one of those aha moments, or is this going to be like my favorite thing, dum, dum, dum?
Yeah, no, I think it's going to play out a lot longer. 32 years in this industry. I don't know. I mean, things can happen quickly, but things also take time, and they take a lot longer than generally predict or expect. So, again, I think it's going to be on a brand by brand basis. I don't know that the rules are going to be the same across the board. And again, it may not even be a consistent basis. I think it's certainly not going to be linear. 1 month, one brand could be strong. Next month, it could be someone else. So I think we see that with Ford. I mentioned Ford up and down. I think that even with Toyota, you see the same. So again, you got to be ready to pivot. You got to be flexible. I think you have to be consistent with your processes. And as Josselyn said earlier, I think automating those processes as you can and working on developing it is going to be good moving forward. But again, I go back to my shattered crystal ball. Right?
That's like our disclaimer, Okay, so we're really going to say something, but we're actually not, because if we did say something, we really didn't, just in case you didn't. So, Josselyn, you brought that up in your introduction too, about booking eight weeks out, et cetera, and we definitely see the advantages of AI and the fact that somebody can respond. And in fact, I forget the gentleman that we spoke to. I had it in my head about 2 seconds ago, but he actually played off what you did when we said, "No, I can't take an appointment. I need quicker," and then the AI responded, "Not a problem. Let me get somebody to help you right now." I'm starting to see, and just from your comments, we're starting to pick up the fact that there's reckoning already in the service side of things, because people are starting to say, "I'm not prepared to wait." Is that correct, or Josselyn?
I think, there's part of that. I think, as Cliff said, I think by brand, there's a story by brand, and certainly by market and by rooftop, because we have high volume rooftops. But I think that the magic that people are looking for is being known. I mean, as a repeat customer, it's just a layup to know that you're a repeat customer, what car you drive, that you've been here before. To know that your car mileage is high, and you probably need a service contract, or you probably need tires, or your red light is on. With the connected car, there's just so much data about the car that needs to get coupled with data about the customer. And then, those two come together in a recommendation engine. And as my friend from Google here will attest, there's nothing like concurrent information. What AI can deliver is a simultaneous knowledge of all things. And what you have with a human is a linear process. Even on the telephone, it's like, well, what phone number are you calling from? Oh, so when you have all of that at hello, like before you said anything, I already know with a high probability why you're calling. And I'm more than ready to help you. And then, other subtasks around that are an AI can do better at opcode mapping than a human. We find most dealers will use 10 or 12 codes for everything, where an AI has no problem, fine-toothing those kind of operations. And so better estimate of what they're coming in for. More context about what they said on the call, better call notes from the AI than you get from your call center. So they're just win-win-win. And you look at what does a customer want? He wants his time treated with respect. One ring, hello, how can I help you? I need an appointment. Great. When do you want to come in? Boom, done, off. So we also find that the calls go so fast that the customer's not fatigued and they're actually willing to keep talking. Because the task that they had was so fast. They're quite open to a longer dialogue. So I think a lot of those are just, I can't remember what the question was. I just took the opportunity to speak.
It was 2023 bringing a little bit of reckoning, but frankly, you're actually giving the solution, which is a great thing. Solutions are super. My big question
it's a reckoning, and I do want to say that's why I was kind of saying the move to manual processes just can't compete with them. That's what I was. It really coming. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, but the thing is this. So what you're telling me is Stella does not answer and say, service, hang on, and drop the phone on the desk, right? Kamal, what do you think? I know it sounds like trying to be positive in our world, but are we going to have some problems for dealers in 2023 based on 2022, 21, et cetera, behaviors?
I think first of all, I agree with both comments made, but I love the two comments made before. In our data itself this year, what we've seen is about 1 in 2 folks have actually faced a lot of trouble with waiting times, availability, inventory shortages this year already, And like they pointed, this may or may not be going away next year pretty soon. What we do know additionally is, out of those 1 in 2 who actually faced a problem, 1 in 4 went on, or 25% of those folks went on to change their decision. So what Cliff was suggesting, it's going to be a huge reset in loyalty that we continue to expect as an industry. You're no longer going to be driven by brand values as much as you're going to be driven by availability of cars when you actually want to go out and get one yourself. In our data itself, you've seen about 11% decrease in loyalty in the last 1 year. The rise of EVs is further going to amplify that need to make sure that brand is up and center. And to Josselyn's point, I love the conversation about parts and services because loyalty no longer should be about, I bought a car 7 years ago and rebuying that car. What are you doing in between? How much are you spending at the dealerships? How well are you aware of that partnership or that loyalty the consumers, showing towards your dealership? And I think that's where the reckoning, if I may, is, if you're not kind of connecting your dots, to Josselyn's point, the car buying journey today, give or take, based on data, is about 60 days. Realistically, consumers are spending, and I'm going to be gracious in this one, spending less than a day at your dealerships. What are they doing outside that you can use to inform and be very well prepared when they call you in, when they call into your dealership, or when they just show up on a dealership? Consumers today, for all we know, they walk in with VIN numbers in the back pockets to know exactly what they want. How do we make that experience a bit more conducive? How do we give them the delight? Because all it takes is to get things wrong when they walk into a dealership versus get things right. You need to almost enable that purchase for the consumer who's half decided or chosen to walk into a dealership to buy the car, rather than force them to buy something which they don't really want. I think that's where the balance between how you're approaching the consumer experience is really going to help you come out of this whole reckoning of brand loyalty is dropping and continues to is likely to continue to drop as well for the industry, especially in Canada. I don't think the US is going to be any different. Yeah, that's where I kind of go. The reckoning is more about the continuous drop in brand loyalty. How do you know the lifetime value of the consumer by connecting those parts and services and the purchase decisions together? Getting that whole journey is going to be really critical for dealerships and OEMs like frankly in 2023. So that's where my part reckoning, part solutions. I very agree with Josselyn and what you said before.
Thanks for that.
I see exactly what you're saying, and we're starting to hear this. The fact that the dealers are starting to say to themselves, "Hey, maybe I better," the ones that weren't doing it, because many did. Maybe I got to start taking care of my customers again, and saying to them, "Listen, my favorite one I saw was a Kia Niro EV for $79,000. That'd be 65,000 in the US. And, literally a customer being told, "Hey, you don't want to buy it." I tell you, I heard this in the 80s. Yes, I was around in the 80s. Customer being told, "You want to buy it? Buy it. You don't want to buy it? Bye-bye." And that could be the reckoning. Ian.
Yeah. Following on the previous question, is that there's a storm coming. What can we do to insulate ourselves from the threats coming? I mean, what do you think we can do as an industry, but more importantly, as people working in the industry, to insulate ourselves from those things? Let's start with Cliff this time.
Well, I guess my question would be, what's the storm?
Well, I think there's a lot of stuff brewing, whether it be interest rates, whether it be economic factors, whether it be military initiatives, whether it be regime change, whether it be supply chain. I mean, pick one. You start with whatever one you want. Yeah.
Well, I think, look, we have 100 years of history with dealers surviving the storm, being incredibly flexible, ready to pivot. World wars, recessions, Great Depressions, 9/11, pandemics. So, I think the playbook to some extent, even though there's new technology today, and we have some maybe new challenges, but mid-1980s, Porsche came in and tried to rewrite the whole franchise. First dealers fought back and won, and I think left us with a pretty good playbook to dust off as manufacturers start approaching upon, the franchise system. I think high interest rates. Well, we've been much higher before. I guess we do have history to look back on in a lot of cases. But again, I'll go back to what I was saying earlier. Keep your head down, work to maintain and improve that customer relationship. Be smart about which technology solutions to use. I mean, there's a lot of great technology out there that's here today or coming that I think is going to help, as Josselyn was saying, automate those processes. I guess I don't get caught up in all of the dramas because dealers are incredibly business, incredible, and are able to figure out a way to make money in any situation. And so I think, I think doing what dealers do best is how you survive the storm, whatever storm.
So it doesn't matter the storm as long as you're focused on the result. More importantly, being able to pivot.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Josselyn, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm going with service again, Ian. I think customers have three choices. Are they going to buy a car or get it fixed? They can call you, they can just drive up and talk to you, or they can chat with you. And I think chat is the big failure. I don't know any chat bots that actually consummate anything. They just forward work to the BDC. So really the two choices are call you or drive there. So given that call is number one, I would say, do a good job on your telephones. And then given that the conversion rate is number one on-prem, that is rather do a good job taking care of the person sitting in front of you. And unfortunately, those two things conflict. Because if you're talking to the person in front of you, you can't answer the telephone. So, that's a challenge. I think automation can help. Obviously, you can't automate all things, just simple things. But I think being smart about your spend, being smart. I mean, we do see dealers paying for inbound phone calls. That's paying commissions. We see, dealers spending $60,000, $70,000 a month on advertising, and they have a 6-minute hold. That's crazy. So I think probably that's part of what he meant by keep your nose down and look at what you're doing. And but I think it boils down to servicing consumers, and I think that dealers are going to be okay as long as they do that.
Yeah, I use the example today. I had to call somebody, and they have a phone system that allows you to find people, but the people working there aren't aware of how that works, and they work in the building.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
I actually have to make a comment there. We've talked about this many a time too, where dealers, they buy stuff and they go to whatever and somebody sells them something and they buy the greatest, latest, wonderful thing. And then it's sort of, in the old days, it used to sit in the closet gathering dust. Now it sits in the virtual closet gathering dust because nobody's using it.
Kamal, what do you think?
Great question, and I kind of agree with Cliff on this one. The way I've been calling this out is it's not a new crisis. It's not something we haven't seen as an industry, and not just our industry. Like every other industry out there is pretty much facing the same crisis, figuring out the way to go. And I agree with both my co-panelists over here, all of you over here. I think the two things, the way I call them out is, great time for everybody, not just dealerships, to get their house in order. That could mean a lot to do with the automation that we've been talking about. It could mean just a lot with getting to know your consumers. They're giving so many signals on your websites. Like you said, they're not gathered dust in the closet. You're getting that data in. How are you leveraging that to talk to your consumer? Which brings me to the second point that was also made before is, there's been no better time to focus on your consumer. Consumers, or consumer behavior right now, as called out by analysts, economic analysts, is probably the only uncertainty for 2023. You know exactly what's happening with the supply chain issues right now. You know exactly how the war is going to affect or is affecting our supply chain today. What we're not aware of is the Canadians sitting on a huge amount of saving. How are they going to react next year? That's kind of the only uncertainty. So there's been no better time to focus on the consumer. And that's part of getting a house in order. Make sure that when they walk in, you're aware of why they're coming in. You enable the purchase, like I said before, but I'm using the word very choicefully over here. Enable it versus force it down the throat in terms of what makes you more profit. The other thing is we're focusing with consumers, and again, some recent news about the market adjustment fees that's been coming up. I think it's also a great time next year for everybody in the industry, and I don't just call it the dealership, but even OEMs, is to be as transparent as we want. As we're evolving into enabling e-commerce for our consumers, transparency is top of mind. It's kind of the top request or the top element consumers have called out in our research to be enabling that experience for them when it comes to shopping online, but experiencing online, and then still walking into a dealership because they still value that partnership. How do you enable that and make it more transparent? So I think in a nutshell, it's not a new crisis. I'm kind of in agreement with, as an industry, 2020, I landed here in Canada right in the middle of COVID. I was amazed at how the auto industry was selling cars online with curbside pickup, if you may. We almost enabled that, curbside drops in this case. And I was one of those guys who experienced that. It was just an amazing experience where the whole industry was adopting different practices, So I'm really appreciative of what the auto industry and being part of it right now for almost 3.5 years in Canada now. There's no better moment to be in the auto industry, frankly. It's the only side left is up, So not only prices, get your house in order, and continue that focus on the consumer. Bring them up and center. They hardly kind of, not they're hardly leaving anything to chance. So almost sharing every single element with the dealerships and the online world today, in terms of how they're thinking, how they're approaching. So how do you continue to delve down on that consumer? So double down on that consumer. Sorry, I think that's pretty much where my 2 points would be. That's one. I love the question, though. Thank you.
No worries, Jeff.
Well, thank you. As you were talking, you talked about AI and stuff, and I was going to make a joke because why is it my Pixel phone doesn't understand a single thing I say to it? But
that makes it two of us. That makes it two of us. Don't worry about it. And I just moved on to a better phone.
yeah, it's funny though, because when we got the demonstration of Stella at Used Car Week, it didn't get anything wrong. And so I'm saying, somebody's going to talk to my phone. But the funny part is live people get it wrong all the time. You know, I mean, I'll address it to Josselyn because it's in the fixed op side of things. But I don't know how many times I had service writers wrong up just write up the entire wrong, not just op code. They came in to check their brakes. They didn't write up to check the brakes. They wrote up there to check the air conditioning system in December. And the customer gets a call saying, we got to replace your air conditioning compressor. And they said, what about my brakes? Oh, so everything gets it wrong. So I'm going to throw this to Cliff because he keeps using the disclaimer of crystal ball breaking, but this one he can't. Cliff, your question is, if you could do one thing to make 2023 better for dealers, for the auto industry, what would that thing be? That's got to be more than 2 words.
Yeah. What would I do to make it better? Well, I would say, it's a little hard to make it better than what it has been the last 2 years. With the profitability across the board, every single factor, every single dealership. That's a tough. You take that world any day.
While you're thinking there, this
yeah.
is sort of like using a football analogy of telling the New England Patriots in the last year of Tom Brady's contract, how are they going to make next year better?
Sure. Josselyn keeps talking about focusing on service, and I think, I think we'd have to define better. We talk about better profit, a better overall selling environment. I think there's a lot of ways to define it to answer that question. If you're a Ford dealer, you're probably hoping your state association is convincing Ford to back down to your EV system that we have in the States. I think that would make life better for Ford. Well, keep doing what you're doing. If I'm a Toyota dealer, my manufacturer saying, keep doing what you're doing. General Motors, I'm saying, I hope you're getting this EV strategy right with your Cadillac. Better start producing those vehicles, making sure you're executing those launches. So I think it's a different answer for different dealers. If we're looking at it from a high level view, maybe again, obviously, I think 2023 and Kamal and Josselyn have pounded on this today, but focusing on that, improving that customer service, taking care of the customer. It's easy to get away from that when you're in this environment with no inventory, you get the customers beating down your door. But we're going to start thinking about a world in which that's not going to be the case. So, I think there's a lot of different ways to crack the answer.
No, it's very true. There is no one answer, and I'm very glad you brought up the Ford thing because, boy, talk about a catch-22. They tell you to put out $1.2 million if you want to sell this stuff. And by the way, we're not going to guarantee that we're not going to cut you out anyway. So let's spend the money.
Right.
Yeah. Kamal, what do you think the one thing, in your opinion, that we could do to make 2023 better for dealers for themselves?
Okay, so I may get muted for the answer, I guess, for this one. So but I think I've been trying to think about this over the weekend and bringing in my last, buying experience in Canada. And I think one of the opportunity is maybe I start with an example. There was this Canadian electronic retail chain called the Future Shop. At some point in time in 1990s, like 1990s, they were acquired by Best Buy. And Best Buy continued to let Future Shop perform the functions or operate in a manner that they were used to, which essentially meant Future Shop was consistently on a sales commission based model. While Best Buy, on the other hand, had folks who were very, very strong product experts and were not on a sales commission. And 6 months, I think 6 months, 12 months in, maybe all of the stories, where Best Buy essentially got to the point where they're like, this sales commission is just not working the way. I'm not saying it's wrong, good, bad, ugly. It's just not working the way that the non-sales commission product-based conversations is. And I think with the rise of EVs, bringing this back to auto, with the rise of EVs, that's essentially where we need to start rethinking our commission models in the shops today. I keep going back to the choice of words. You kind of enable that experience. The consumers are no longer looking for recommendations being thrown at them, forced down their throats. They're almost aware of what their needs are. They know what they want. So how do we as an industry refocus on that sales commission? Enable our folks to sell better, versus sell more. And that is where we see a lot more to Cliff's point before. That's where you continue to focus on your consumer. There's so much more that you can do, obviously. But I guess that's the one I challenge is us as an industry, and I've been putting myself in this space. Is how do we enable those experiences and that sales for the consumers versus push something that they're not really looking or wanting to get it. So I'd say my quick one to this is we need to rethink that sales commission model at the dealerships. And rethink of that as an industry, together, collaboratively. There's definitely a constructive way we can move away and still continue to sell more of the inventories that we really have stocked up or we don't have any right now, right? But I think that's my top answer to this one, I'd say. If that makes sense, I didn't get muted, so I'm guessing it wasn't as controversial.
It doesn't make sense. It makes dollars.
Yeah, for sure. I love that.
I know that your focus is on the service side, the fix ops side of things, but one of the big coin phrases for years was 360 degrees. That a good sales department helps your service department experience. I also used to live by the motto that a customer decides how they're going to get this treated in a service department within 1 minute of meeting a salesperson. So that being said, what do you think could be done to make 2023 better, other than going full Stella.ai in every dealership, which would be really good?
Good job. Thank you. That was Ron Smith, by the way, Kate Hagerty you met in San Diego. I was looking it up.
Right.
Yeah, we, I think, we have some perspective. We do answer the main line. So we book appointments, answer questions. I think, more than just service lane, we have a view too. And I would say, just mirroring what the panel says is, but the focus being on HR. I mean, I find one of the challenges is to attract talent at the dealership and get good people and retain them. We see dealers struggling to fill posts and struggling to retain talent. I have had people tell me, one guy said, I'd rather, come work for you and train your AI than ever train another human. He trained so many people through COVID. But I think, I've heard of some creative models where dealers splitting schedules into 2 shifts, having 3 to 4 day work weeks. I think being creative in the call center, and I'll also make a plug for technology in that sense. I think the millennials have no patience for manual processes and don't want to work somewhere where they feel or look stupid. So having things where they're better, they have good tools, it's easy to engage, it's easier for them to train and have some altitude in a dialogue with a customer as we move into this younger sales force. They really need technical support. But I think what dealers, I think it's a thing. I think HR in the automotive industry, you're looking at a very large distributed small business. And competing for talent against big business. I think there's a lot dealers could do to be more flexible and attract the younger talent that's needed to move this industry into the EV era. Is really something that one could do a whole show on.
Well, Jeff, since we have Dave, maybe Dave has a thought on a dealer and how he deals with that. I don't know if Dave wants to comment.
He's being shy.
Being shy. I think I saw Kamal, I believe, in Vegas in October, and I'm just listening.
Not at the poker table, though, right? Not at the poker table, though.
Not at the poker. I wouldn't play poker against you. You don't have projections. You have facts. Like, you have more data than I can ever imagine to have. Okay, and just some of the data that you guys share is just absolutely amazing. I would love to have your data on what my employees are looking at, and what are they looking at other jobs? Are they searching for jobs? What are they buying? What are they looking at doing? What are their future aspirations? You have all that data at Google because you have all their search history and everything. I mean, you don't have that granular, but for the most part, you do. I mean, I find it amazing. I'm going to go off topic just a second here. I find it amazing. You guys have it down to the day when searches are going to exceed electric vehicles over ICE vehicles, right? If you have it down to the day when that's going to happen. So I'm just happy to sit back and watch your projections. I mean, as far as hiring and retention, yeah, there's a big shift on. We're changing everything. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to change in this business. A lot of things that are going to change. Like I said, the data that Google has is everybody. Like a lot of people call and say, "Hey, we're Google certified." Well, you're Google. You have.
Oh, thank you, Dave. The kind words. I think just send me an email address and send you the data. But jokes apart,
Dave, for only $132.50 a month, you can get that data sent to you every single day.
For that data, is it 132,000 or is it?
Yeah, it's like exactly.
Also, it's not the data is not available to me.
Think about it.
I will be recording this one. No, but I think just to add more to that, I think we keep talking about diversity, inclusion, and we use elements like sex, color, race, so on and so forth. But I think the biggest diversity and inclusion drive that as an industry should be doing is attracting new talent. And that means, how do we get these fresh graduates to think of the auto industry as being sexy? There's just an amazing transition. It's a 1 in 100-year transition, like we've spoken about earlier as well. That's happening right now. How do we enable more fresh, newer talent to start moving into the industry? How do we get those product experts? How do we make sure we are hiring just not for the sake of diversity, but actually for the sake of our businesses with the lens of diversity? And that comes in terms of the talent pool that we're tapping into. How do we enable those? I think that point is where I really strongly feel there's a huge opportunity for the industry as well. How do you get more folks to dial in and just stay in the industry and help with the transition and learn along the way, because it's an amazing place to learn right now. I've learned a lot in the last 3 years that I've been here, and there's just no dearth of learning along the way. So plus one to everything that's been said, and Dave, we don't have the data to share individually to anyone.
I know. I'm just. I know.
No, just put it for another bit recording.
Well, I tend to agree with everybody here. The industry is changing. Ian and I spoke before everybody logged on this morning that the days of the manager, the dealer sitting in front of people saying, even in service, listen, we're going to make a whole bunch of calls. We're going to buy pizza. Everybody come in here on Friday night and rock and roll. It's changing because people are saying, no. I don't want to do that. It's time we take a look at that. It's not, in my opinion, it's not just commission, which is a big deal too, because people don't want to sit there and work 14-hour days for nothing. But it's this whole mindset that we have that one has to give up their lives when the newer generation of people, it isn't it. And I related to this before I turn it over to Ian to close the show. I related to this. When I got into the business, and maybe when Dave did and Cliff, it was not uncommon for salespeople to have a bottle in their drawer and to smoke, to take 27 smoke breaks a day. And these days, that's gone, long gone. And depending where you are, going for a smoke break is rare, and somebody looking at you like, what are you doing? So that's changing, and that may be even as big a shift as the other. Ian.
Yeah, I mean, the only constant in life is change, and even if you're dead, you're probably still changing in different ways.
And taxes.
Yeah, and taxes. We were talking about that this morning as well. So I guess my final thought would be, obviously 2023 is going to be an interesting year. I'm sure different than 2022, but I think as long as you are putting your house in order, putting processes in place, and embracing technology, but more importantly, listening to that staff of different generations and maybe what their input would be, that will probably make life a little bit easier. But don't forget about the customer, because to quote Kamal, I mean, when you look at the fact that customers today are not as brand loyal as they used to be, that should be a big red flag for dealers to say, listen, we need to hold on to our customers. It's always easier to retain customers than attract them. And I think that's something that we've lost sight of, just because it's been a little easier to sell cars maybe in 2022 than it was in 2017, to pick a random year. So that's something that I think Stella can help with. Obviously, Google can help with, but just having the right process helps. Any final thoughts from Cliff, Josselyn, or Kamal? Go ahead.
Stay tuned. I think it's, I think the next, when I talk about the uncertainty in this industry, I don't think we're going to have any clarity until 3 to 5 years. And that clarity is going to come, as we start seeing whether these issues are serious play out. Until then, we're just not going to know what 2030 looks like. So if you have a fire, you got some capital as a dealer, and you're young enough, stay in the game and get bigger. If you don't, it's probably time to exit.
I think the other thing I'll say is, it's been lovely being on the show, and plus one to Cliff's comment. I think the only thing I'll say differently is the uncertainty in the next 5 years is actually a great opportunity for the industry. The last couple of years has been topsy-turvy, and now to Chris's point, as this whole transition, supply chain, the omni-channel acceleration unfolds in our industry, the next 5 years is a great opportunity. Disruption, but a great opportunity nonetheless.
Absolutely.
And that's where it stands to be seen, where we net out on the other side of this decade, I guess.
Josselyn?
Pleasure to be here and meet you all and participate in the vision for 2023. We're certainly probably one of the fastest growing companies in the industry. We're expecting quite a wild year and looking very much forward to it.
Perfect.
Thanks for coming on.
Yep.
And have yourself a great week, and all the best for the holiday season and New Year, wherever you celebrate. And we'll hopefully see you again. Have a great day. Here we go.
Thanks for joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.